Imagine a world without Facebook, Google or Twitter. Well, that's China, a country which has established a completely different digital ecosystem. No wonder then that companies that are trying to establish themselves in China often have difficulties. Well, enter Synorbis, a company which is helping those companies that want to establish a web presence in China. Nicholas Chu is a founder, I'm pleased to say is with me now.
Digital marketing in China is difficult. Synorbis helps Western companies and organizations to build their foundations in China. China is very difficult for a few reasons. The lack of understanding, high barriers to entry, and the lack of control. The high barriers to entry are there mainly because of the Great Firewall. There's regulation in China that has been filtering out for years channels that we have been leveraging to sell online, our products online such as Google, Facebook and Twitter, but it has also favored the emergence of a completely different online ecosystem. You don't have Google, but you have Baidu, Sogou, 36 and Shenma. You don't have Facebook, Twitter, you have WeChat. You have everything that we have been using for years are either not accessible or not used in China.
So it sounds as if the web is going to be split between one market in the West and one market in China.
I think they will diverge. That's my personal opinion. You know, for the last 25 years, we have been evolving in an internet led by the US, the one that I grew up in. For the next 10 years, we'll see the emergence of this different ecosystem, the Chinese internet, and I think those two will remain separate.
Doesn't this go against what we were originally told with the development of the web, that it was going to be global? Now we have two internets developing.
Yes, in some ways, but I also think that it already happens in the internet that we have been evolving to. You know, everything is going through Google, Amazon, Facebook already. So there has been already a certain level of centralization in the West. But the big difference is obviously the free internet. You know, the internet in China is extremely regulated. The censorship is very high, and that's definitely a big difference. They have to be compliant with the regulation for sure, and not to talk about sensitive topics. But you also have to make sure that from a technology perspective, you are adapted and optimized for this ecosystem. Because that's the main problem. Even if you are not in an environment or talking about something that is highly regulated, if your presence hasn't been optimized for this digital ecosystem, it's most likely that's not going to be visible. I mean, it will be very difficult to find it because you won't be indexed by the search engines in China, but also it will take a lot of time to be loaded. So I always give a lot of examples of websites that we have here, like David Jones' website, for instance. It takes 3 minutes to be loaded out of Shanghai, not because the content is blocked, but because the website wasn't built for China. So they have to recreate, and they have to rethink the way how they do things, and they have to recreate from scratch their foundations.
You secured a lot of startup funding when Synorbis was just in beta mode. How did you manage that?
Everyone knows that China is, but Warren Buffett was saying that the 19th century was the century of the UK, the 20th of the US, the 21st would be of China. So when I came in and I explained that despite the fact that it will be the center of China, there's now no tools to allow us, Western organizations and businesses, to go after this market. It really helped. It really helped because we are really trying to address one of the major problems nowadays.
Sounds as if we're entering an era where no longer can you have just one person with a bright idea creating a global company.
The short answer is I don't think so. The long answer would be that it has never been easier to set up a company. With limited funds, you can actually have access to amazing technology. You have software that will help you to do anything you want, but it has never been that competitive, that much competitive. So I think it's all about, if you have a good idea, to follow what you think, not listen to what people are saying actually, because otherwise you will never do anything. If you really believe that you can make a difference, that you can create meanings, then ultimately it will work. So for small companies, you have access to much more tools to achieve that, but you're not the only one. And that's where I think the complexity comes from. It's because others will have access to the same tools as you do. So it has to go beyond just the tools and the ideas. It's all about the execution and the team. Things are moving exponentially. We're doing things nowadays that we were not able to do last year, and next year there will be things that we thought were not possible. I think wherever we go, it will be all about the convergence of different technologies, and we need to be ready for that. A big chunk will be coming from China, but also I think a big chunk will be coming from the internet that we have been used to.